Hi guys, welcome to Madeleine's Makings. If you don't already know, my name is Madeline. Today I'm going to show you guys how to do a painting I've been doing a lot of recently because I'm stuck in quarantine, and what better thing to do than paint? It's a watercolor painting of a landscape with mountains and trees. I hope you guys enjoy this video as much as I enjoyed putting this together for you. I encourage you to try it out for yourself and just have fun and try your best. That being said, let's get crafty. Alright, so today I'm going to be recreating these two paintings with the mountains and the trees, but I'm going to be doing pinks and purple tones. So I'm going to do it on this size paper, and this paper is very thin. It is not watercolor paper, but it's sketchbook paper, but I'm improvising. And then this is my swatch stick to make sure I can swatch the colors and have the right shades that I want. The watercolor palette that I'm going to be using looks like this, and if you see it in the store and you want to get it, this is the cover. It is fairly new and it has a lot of colors, and I don't have to mix my own shades, so that's why I like this. I also have these brushes that I'm going to be using. So this is a brush, a paintbrush that is a size 8. And I like it because it has like a thin tip, which is perfect for the mountains. And then for the little trees, I'm using a size 5, but all the bristles fell out of this, or almost all of them. So it is perfect for the trees, but I'm sure you could get a smaller size that comes with a smaller bristle already in it. Then I have paper towels to dab the water off my brushes. And I also have this Scotch tape that's safe release painter's masking tape, which is really good because when you peel the paint up, it does not rip the paper. So let's get started painting. So I'm going to start by taking my size 8 brush and swatching the colors that I want. So as I go, I'm going to show you what colors I'm using. So if you get this particular palette, you can do the same if you want. So I'm gonna start out with this light pink for the sky. So I'm just swatching it to make sure I like that color. And you don't want it too wet, because if your brush is too wet, then it'll be less pigmented and it'll be watered down. So you want to get less water so you can see the actual color. So I like that color for the sky. Now I'm just wiping my brush off. And this pink looks a little bit darker than the pink that I just used. Yes, it is. So I'm going to say that's going to be for my first mountain. And if you think the colors are too dark, you can always just dilute it with more water. So after this pink, I think I'm going to go into a purple tone. So I'm going to see what this color looks like next to it. It's more of a magenta color, so I like that color. The next color I think I'm going to use will be this color. Well, this is going to be the sky. First mountain, second mountain, third mountain. I actually think I'm going to switch it. For the second mountain, it'll be a mix of these two colors. So I'm going to use this color and this color for the second mountain. For the third mountain, I believe this shade is lighter than that one. Let's see. I'll use this, but I'll dilute it a bit so it's not too dark coming after that one. And then the last one I think I'm going to use at the end, you want the darkest shade of whatever color you're using. So it's going to be that one at the end, because this one's darker than that one. So yeah, because this one's going to have the biggest trees, so you want it darker so it'll cover up the other trees. So let's get started with our actual painting. Alright, so now we're going to start painting on our final product paper. So I'm going to show you as I go along what colors I'm using. So I'm going to start with the lightest pink that is in the palette. And I'm just going to take that and I'm going to do I'm going to dilute it with a bit of water first. And it's going to be like a light pink because this is the sky, so you don't want it to be too harsh or else it'll be too overpowering compared to the mountains. So I'm just getting that color and spreading it at the top. And if you put it too dark somewhere, just get a little bit of water and spread it out. And then off camera, I'm gonna let it dry before I go into the next thing, because if it's too wet, when you go to do the mountains, the color will disperse and then it'll just be a big blob. And we do not want a big blob as a mountain or a tree. So that is it for the sky, I believe. I'm just trying to get the color even. It's okay if it's a little darker in some spots than others, because the final product will look good. So I'm gonna let that dry and then come back. It's okay if it's a little wet. I use this super bubble ball blower to dry it faster, because I do not have like the professional painting one. It's okay if it's a little wet, but as long as it's not like soaking wet, you're good. So now, the first mountain color that I had on my swatch stick was this one. So I'm gonna wet it a little and then dry my brush off. So I'm just trying to get that color. And right now I'm getting the tip of the brush to be like sort of pointy. So we're gonna start with the first mountain. So I'm gonna start up here because this paper is smaller than the other ones. So I'm gonna start higher up. So I'm gonna start right here. You just make like a jaggedish line. And if it's too high or too low, you can always go over it, because the colors coming up should be darker, so that it'll cover it up. So I'm just getting more paint. So now you just want to sort of blend it out. And no, I do not hold my brush correctly, or my pencil, or anything. But hold your brush however is comfortable for you. So I'm just filling this part out. And you, like, this shade and the sky shade are similar, but it's okay as long as the first mountain's a little bit darker. And you don't need to go all the way down with it, because you're going to be covering that space with the other mountains and the other trees. So I'm just filling this in. I'm just trying to get some of the edges over here. So then I'm going to put that brush into the water. I'm grabbing my skinny brush and dipping it in like this, just so it gets some paint on it. And if it's not coming, you can push a little harder. And what you're gonna do is, on here, the mountains are scattered in different spots. It doesn't really matter where you put them, just don't put them all next to each other. So this spot for me right now is the most open. So I am just going to do a line. And for the trees, you do have to keep redipping, just so all the parts of the trees are like equal in color. But then you just, as you go up, you draw smaller lines up all the way to the top. And if you have a different way you would prefer to do your trees, you are welcome to do that as well. But this is just how I do my trees. So I just have to make sure it's skinny going up. And if you start at the top, it's very tiny at the top, and then you start getting bigger and bigger and bigger down to the bottom. But I'm redipping a lot because on this brush, it doesn't hold as much color as bigger brushes would. So, yeah. But don't worry at the end when we do the bigger trees, because we will use the bigger brush for that. So I like to do about 3 to 4 trees on each mountain layer, just because then it won't be too empty. Like, I like to do 2 close to each other and then 1 like alone. Sometimes I will do 4 depending on the space that I have for that particular tree. So that is how I want my first mountain to look. Now I have to let this dry, so I'm going to be right back. Alright, so now that that is mostly dry, I'm going to start with my next color, and I did say that I was going to do a mixture of this color right here and this color. So yes, I just didn't wipe my brush off, but that is okay. I'm actually going to start with the lighter color, and then I could put a little bit of the darker, but it's hard to put the darker color on top of the lighter color. So I usually start down here and like eyeball where my mountain's gonna go. And you want it to like sort of start like where that comes from. I'm wiping my brush off because I had a lot of pigment on it and I feel like that was too much. So if you have too much, I usually just spread it downwards, like to the bottom, so it's not as dark. And I did use a little bit of both colors when I started. So I'm just spreading this downward. I'm actually going to grab a little bit of the darker color, not too much because I already feel like it's very dark on its own. So I'm just doing that and adding in, my brush keeps being weird right now, adding in a little more of the purpley tones because next to the pink it doesn't look too purple-y-ish. And when this happens, you can just like make the bumps on the mountain higher up so there is no weird lines. And yes, it's not evenly spread. That's what I'm fixing right now because some parts get less pigment than others, so you might have to redip like I just did and add little dots places so you can smooth those out so it's less open. I'm just gonna fill this spot in right here, and then I'm going to switch to my smaller brush and grab the lighter tone of the two tones that I was using for this particular mountain. I'm gonna carefully draw a line up. Now, right now, I can see the water moving back and forth, so I know that it's too wet. So then, because there's a water pile right in the middle, so I go to the edge because my brush is still a little bit wet. I just go like this to pick up paint, but it's drier. So now I'm just starting with my biggest line and going upwards to the smaller lines. Now for this level, I think I'm gonna add like a little bush-ish looking thing. It doesn't look too much like a bush, but that's okay. It looks like a bush or a baby tree, whatever you would like. And then the other tree I'm gonna add is up here, so it's okay like if it like goes up to the next mountain, because on this paper it's smaller actually, so it's smaller going this way, so you don't have as much room for each mountain, but you still have room. So some can be taller than others as well. So I'm just filling this in right now. And the reason I have to let it dry in between each mountain is because if you go to do the trees like I'm doing right now, the water from the other paint will still be wet and it will disperse and it looks like a big blob, and the blobs do not look too great, but mistakes are part of learning. So I have done that before and I learned how to fix it. So I'm done, so I'm going to let this dry and be right back. Okay, so now I let that dry. I'm gonna use this color that was too wet for the next mountain. This is the second to last mountain that I'm doing. So this mountain is still gonna have baby trees, but so I'm doing just making the mountain. I'm gonna make it a little taller. And for this one as well, it doesn't matter how far you bring the paint down. It doesn't need to be all the way down, just because the last color is darker than this one, so it does not matter because you can just cover it up. So I'm just gonna grab more paint because it needs more pigmentation. And you might have noticed that on the tape there's little black lines, and I put this piece down first and I was just measuring out to see how far in this piece was so it would match all the way around. It wouldn't be in too far on one part and then thinner on another part. So I'm just trying to get the pigmentation even on each part because like that part is lighter than these parts. So I'm just trying to spread it out evenly. And yeah, so I'm gonna finish this real quick. And I think, I'm just trying to get the edges, but I think that I'm good with that mountain. I think it looks good. So now I'm just drying my smaller brush off and I'm dipping into this. I have to dry that off because that was too wet, but I like to go to the edges because it's less wet there, which makes the trees look a little darker and better, in my opinion. So I'm gonna do one right here. I need more water. So I'm gonna do one right here, as I was saying. Now my brush is too wet. And I'm gonna start down with the widest stroke of the tree, then go up and go thinner. You can also start at the top and go down like I said before. It doesn't really matter. You could also do a different type of tree if you would like. But yeah, this is just the type of trees I do because I personally think when I do the bigger trees, they all match, and the bigger trees look better when they look like this, in my opinion. So yeah. And I like how the trees are all the same type of tree. So, and then I think I'm gonna add one more tree. Yeah, because on this one I only did 2 trees and I did a bush, so I'm gonna do 3 trees. And the reason I'm not putting any trees like over in the corner is because when the taller trees go, the last color that I'm gonna do, they cover up the ones that are like all the way on the edge. So I don't even bother putting any there because they're gonna get covered up sooner or later. Unless you want to put a tree like more towards the middle, then you could put one like right here if you want it. So now I'm gonna let that dry and we'll be right back. Okay, so now that color dried, I'm going to start with the darkest color and the one that I need the biggest trees for. So now we only need this brush, unless you prefer to do smaller trees on this one. So I'm just getting a lot of that pigment because this has to be the darkest one compared to the other ones. So now I'm just doing the mountain. From there, I'm gonna keep redipping because I want this to be consistent with how dark it is and how the first one was very dark. So yeah, I'm just gonna fill this in and then I'll do the big trees because it looks really cool if you do the big trees on this level because it looks, well, this would be the closest to you in real life if you were like standing like over here. So yeah, it looks very realistic because like the trees that are closest to you are the biggest in real life compared to the ones that would be very far away. So I am almost finished with the mountain part of it. This brush is doing something funky today, but I'm just gonna fill this last little part in, and I believe that I am done with this mountain. I think, yeah. I'm gonna say I'm done with the mountain. Actually, wait. I was lying. Okay, wait, nope. Okay, now I'm done with the mountain. So now, what I'm gonna do is you wanna like roll the brush on the paint so that it's skinny, because you don't want it to be too fat of a tree. So I'm gonna do one over here and one over here because that's where I left the empty spots. So I'm just gonna draw. It's not a very straight line either, but I'm just gonna try to draw the straightest line that I can draw. Then I'm gonna dip. I like, for these trees, I like starting at the top because it's sort of hard to start from the bottom, I feel. So if I were to just keep going thicker with the strokes every time I went down, the bottom would be like very fat. But I sort of do a couple of strokes the same length, or a little tiny bit bigger before I go into the next length, because I don't want it to be too fat at the bottom. And since the tree is so close to the edge, some of like the strokes will be cut off, but that's okay. As long as like you keep it running and you don't like stop before you get to the edge. So it just looks more realistic looking. So that is that tree. And then I'm just gonna re-dip how I did before and do the swirly motions for the second tree. Try to get a skinny top. So I'm gonna do this one going up. And then, yeah, finish the tree. This one's gonna be taller than the other one because I want it to be like the biggest tree. And then I'm just gonna make the top. Every time my brush goes out of the camera, it's because I'm re-dipping. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that. So I'm just gonna start. And one time I did make the mistake of not doing the strokes, and it did look a little weird. So I personally enjoy doing the strokes more than just like making it like a bubble and then making it fatter as I go down, because I do not like how that looks, but you may, so you might do that. So I am just doing strokes. These strokes are bigger than the other strokes, like how I'm doing it, but I'm gonna actually grab a little more water on my brush because I feel like it was getting dried out and I couldn't really pick up enough paint. So I'm actually gonna draw the bottom line. Like I said, I don't like to, but I am just gonna do it because I feel like I went a little too big on the strokes there, but that's okay. So I'm gonna let this dry and then I'll do the final reveal and take the tape off. And yeah, so I pretty much think that's it. I'm just gonna fix up this side because it got a little funky. This side too, because that also did not like me. So yeah, I'll be back with the reveal in 1 minute. So I let it dry, and the reason I let it dry before taking the tape off is because I don't want to take the tape off and then the watercolor go like that and get on the edges. So I'm gonna start peeling the tape off, and like I said before, it leaves like a really nice line and nothing in my experience seems to seep under it, and it doesn't rip the paper. So I just take a big piece of sketch paper and cut it up with a paper cutter because I get the best lines doing that. So this is the final product. I'm really glad with how this turned out. And then I think I'm going to just take this pen and I'm going to sign. I'm going to sign down here with my initials. Gonna put M. Just putting my little initials here. And then I'm going to put a little, the C will go into a heart because that's cute. It doesn't really look like a heart on camera, but trust me, it is a heart right there, that thing. So I'm really glad with how this turned out, and I hope you guys will post. If you do this, post and tag me in it so I can see your beautiful artwork. And comment down below if you have any ideas for future videos. Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on the post notifications bell so you get notified every time I post a new video. And like this video if you enjoyed it. I hope to see you guys next time. Bye.